Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Clay Hamlin, a partner here at the firm. Clay, throughout the year, your business, as well as any other business, will grow.
Sure.
Okay. What kind of happens throughout that growth process? Because you don't always grow at the same rate in any given time, right? It's not just this linear thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Growth can go in spurts. It can stop. It can grow steady for a while.
One thing that I know that you have said, and many of the other accountants here have mentioned, that it has to be controllable, right? Mm-hmm. Like it can't be too much growth or too little growth. It has to be a controlled growth.
Right.
That's what's healthy.
Yeah.
It could be and you could even say like a decline could be the same way. A decline, at least you're able to notice it and address it. Okay. So with that said, is this cyclical? Like, is this normal that there's like a growth pattern or like where it becomes unsteady, unsustainable?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, say, the stock market over the years, mm-hmm. it tends to have a 7-year cycle, right? Stock market grows and grows and grows and grows, and then about every 7 years, it takes a tumble.
I'm going to pause you right now, Clay. What year are we on?
We're not talking about that.
We are not giving stock advice right now. That's not what we do. All right, carry on.
But I'm building the analogy here, right? Mm-hmm. And in the analogy of the stock market, it can happen in businesses and oftentimes does similarly, mm-hmm. in that you focus and you are what people call like anal about making sure everything is correct, and you're doing a great job and you're very attentive and you're expending a lot of energy.
Say it's like laser focused, right?
Yeah, and you develop success, but the energy to get you there it's tiring. Mm-hmm. Like, it takes saps, and people tend to gravitate towards less energy scenarios. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes what got you to that level of success, then you look around and you go, hey, I made it. I finally hit my goal, and you relax. Mm-hmm. Well, relaxing oftentimes has the effect of planting the seeds for the decline that mm-hmm. happens. Mm-hmm. So then now, as you're enjoying the success, some things go wrong, and you kind of like poo-poo them. Oh, it's not that bad. Mm-hmm. It's not that big of a deal. That this is just a one-time event. Oh, that's a once in a
kind of walk it off.
Year deal. Don't worry about that. Until it gets to be so bad, you're like, oh my God, what the heck? And you oftentimes make some pretty bad decisions, but now you've re-engaged and are expending the energy again, and you got the laser focus back. And then you bottom out then, and you start climbing back up again. And a lot of businesses go through this. And it's simply because, in my opinion, it's very difficult to sustain the energy level needed to maintain that sort of peak performance. It's sort of like a sprinter. If you said, hey, I know you're great at the 100. I want you to maintain that same speed for the 400 or the 800 or the 1600. And they'll look at you like, I can't.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm really glad you brought up the mention of the sprinter, because I think about it as far as like diets. It is pretty, I don't want to say like it's so easy, but like if you said, okay, for a week, I'm only going to eat vegetables and organic such and such, right? That's more doable than I'm going to do this for a month, or I'm going to cut out all the donuts or all the desserts that exist.
Correct.
So there is a big difference between trying to do it for an extended amount of time versus just doing it in bursts. So yes, it takes a lot more energy, takes a lot more concentration, and it is not sustainable for the full duration.
Correct. And this is sort of like what some people are thinking about with AI. We're going to come back to AI for a moment.
It's a popular thing to talk about.
Because the energy that it takes to remain at peak, right? Mm-hmm. If you can make a lot of your operation subject to AI, mm-hmm. what you do, it's not your energy, it's the computer's energy, and the computers can stay at that level for long periods of time. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, if I can bring AI into my operation and make it really deep into it and make it actually work, that's very difficult to do. But if you can do that, I could actually stay at that peak point for long periods of time. It's not subject to the human element of I can't sustain that level of activity for that long of a period of time. If you're preparing tax returns, after a while, you either become bored or you become exhausted, and maybe both. And at the moment you exhibit either of those things, oftentimes when you make a mistake, you key a number wrong, you overlook something that you should never have overlooked. There's a myriad of things that can happen. Mm-hmm. Computer doesn't really get tired, and so as long as the electricity continues to flow,
and the internet keeps going.
The internet keeps going. It remains at the same level, and so business owners look at that and say, "My gosh, that I can make millions off of this." The only problem is that so far AI is not
profitable in itself,
and not predictably correct all the time.
Right. So getting back to this kind of like growth and contracting of the business.
Yep.
So typically what we're seeing is, hey, business does its job, sticks its nose to the grindstone, becomes profitable, starts plateauing off because it's achieved its goal. Whether it's, hey, I made my first $1 million, we added that new wing and it's finally paid off, insert whatever the purpose is. And it gets relaxed, starts a decline. And that's kind of, at that moment, there's a decision that is made at some level that, hey, we need to lean back up, put our nose back to the grindstone, or it makes this kind of decline. There's a panic, I understand.
Yeah. If I could sort of break that a little bit, there is a way to, when you see the really successful business owners over a long period of time and you say, well, how did they do that? And if you think of like if you ask a pro golfer, right, mm-hmm. and you say, how do you have such a great swing? What they'll tell you is, I'm working at 80%.
What do you mean by that?
So they're not swinging as hard as they can. It might look like they are, but at least in their mind, they're not. They're swinging at 80% of their capacity. And I think a lot of business owners, as they grow the business, and they go right past 80% because they're trying to keep growing. I want to keep making more and more and more. Oh, I need a 45. I need a 55. I need a 65% margin. And when you do that, you now are having to, from a pro golfer standpoint, swing at 100%, and you just can't do that. The business owner that recognizes, if I can maintain a sort of 80% capacity over a long period of time, I'm going to make a ton of money.
Okay.
But I'm not at 100%. It's sort of like, if I can use investing, although you don't want me to go there, because we're not investment advisors.
We are not.
If you take a lesser risk and take a lower return mm-hmm. over a long period of time, you can make a ton of money. And it's only those who want to make money fast that really they're swinging too hard, so to speak, and they can't maintain the growth, mm-hmm. but they let up because they don't have that energy, and so then you see that down cycle. The ones that sort of go up and then maintain for a long period of time, they've found a sort of place where the business is successful.
And they're comfortable, right?
They're comfortable, but they're not running at 100% because that's not sustainable. If you asked a sprinter to sprint instead of going 100% for 100 yards, can you do 80% for 400? They probably say yes.
Okay. That makes sense. Again, it's, hey, you can do the 80% for much longer, right? And
yes.
you can, it's not that you can't do 100%. You can do it sometimes.
Correct.
But to do it for a long haul, that's just not possible. I mean, it's the same with like your car. If you were redlining it the entire way, eventually something's going to happen. But
yeah, a jetliner, for example, you fly in a jet is doing, say, 550 miles an hour is typical for a jet. They can go faster. They can do 650, but they don't. The airlines chooses not to because it pushes. It's redlining the jet, and eventually it'll break down. So just like a lot of other mechanical things, a business in a way is a mechanical thing. And you can't push it too hard. A lot of business owners will try and push it to 100%, especially if they're successful and they keep seeing more and more and more success. Well, just keep pushing harder and harder and harder and harder, and eventually they either say, "Well, that's unsustainable," or it breaks.
Right. As we kind of wrap this up, I want to bring up a few things, specifically like projects. So in some industries. Software industries, for example, they will work on something and say, hey, our deadline is here. They will do sprints because the big like, hey, we're going to complete going from version 1 to version 2.0 by the end of the year. Instead of saying this one giant ambiguous thing, they will break it up into little pieces. Hey, by this month, this component needs to get done. Next. So it's all broken up to be completed, the whole thing by then. So it is doable, and they do a sprint. They'll say, okay, we need to have this very short, I don't want to say short term, but close deadline to get the focus in, make sure it can happen so that we can stay on target to still hit this other thing at the end of the year. Otherwise, everyone's just running around like crazy.
Yeah.
And that big ambiguous goal is just not attainable.
And it's planned. You have sprint, 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 sprint. And then when I was training for a marathon, we would do that sort of thing. We would have sprints for, say, 5 or 10 minutes, or even 30 seconds, and then you have a 30-second break, and then you sprint for 30 seconds, and then you have a 30-second break. It's planned. Everybody knows what's going to happen, and you can do it. But if you said, well, I need you to sprint for 2 hours.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No. Clay, is there anything else you want to bring up about this this cycle of growth and contracting?
Other than we're not investment advisors? No.
You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.